Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Just Be Creative. I'm your host, and today we're doing a third book review today, but we're not doing Charles Dickens' book. We're doing a Tom Sawyer book, and we're going to be talking about Huckleberry Finn, the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Now, I'm afraid I don't know what adventure this Huckleberry Finn book is. We're going to find out together, okay? So I'm going to start the book. I'm going to start the timer. And just let me start the book first. Okay. Let me hit. There we go. It should be working. There we go. Let me start the timer.
Chapter 1. My name is Huckleberry Finn. I live in a real nice house in a town called St. Petersburg, on the banks of the Mississippi River. I didn't always live in this house, wear fancy clothes, or go to school every day and church on Sundays. And, to tell you the truth, I'm not all that comfortable wearing smart shirts and proper shoes all the time. But that's how Widow Douglas likes it. I'd much prefer to be running wild in the woods and having adventures with my best friend, Tom Sawyer. Widow Douglas takes care of me because I'm only 13 and don't have a ma anymore. When my pap is in town, he wastes most of his time in the inn. So, Judge Thatcher agreed that it would be best for everyone if I go and live with the old widow and her sister, Miss Watson. My new house is closer to Tom's now, unlike Pap's old shack in the woods. It means that he can call on me, throwing stones at my window, day or night. I lift up the window and shimmy down the drain pipe. These are the only times I can get out and have a little fun. Widow Douglas is kind to me, but her sister can be bossy. Miss Watson looks at me like I'm always up to no good. Even though I get 3 meals a day and a warm room all to myself, I sometimes catch myself staring out of my window at the Mississippi. Watching the sunlight bouncing off the water and the steamboats floating by, I sit and wonder if there is more to this life than smart clothes, reading, writing, and praying. Tom and I had just finished school one afternoon when we decided to go to our hideout down by the river. A few months ago, we'd discovered a huge pile of money. It had been the best adventure of our lives. Ever since then, we'd been looking for another great adventure. Nothing had come close, yet. Sometimes I wish I could just run away, I said to Tom, throwing stones from the riverbank and watching them skip across the water. Well, you can't, Tom replied. If you left the widow's place, I couldn't call on you anymore. I sighed. It was different for Tom. He had always lived in a nice house. He was taken care of by his Aunt Polly and had a real family around him. He was my best friend, but I sometimes thought he didn't understand me. Just as I was about to argue some more, I stopped still. There were clear footprints in the mud just down the bank from our hideout. On each heel of the footprint was a cross. I only knew one pair of boots that had a cross in them like that. Fear ripped through me like a storm. They were Pap's boots. My father was back in town. Chapter 2. If Pap was back in town, that could only mean one thing. He must have heard about the money Tom and I had found. I knew as soon as they put it in the newspaper that Pap would come sooner or later to try and take the money from me. You might wonder why my Pap being back in town would make me so fearful. My Pap isn't like most fathers. He never read me a bedtime story or kissed me goodnight. He was always too busy causing trouble or disappearing without a word. I was scared when he was around because he would beat me. I decided the best idea would be to get rid of my money. Then, just maybe, Pap would lose interest in me again. I ran to Judge Thatcher's office in town and begged him to take the money off me. Now, Huckleberry, the judge said, with a kind smile playing across his lips. I can't just take your money. You found it, so it's yours. If I have it, Pap will come and find me and try to take it from me, I said. frowned and paced around his office. "I'll tell you what," he said. "I will buy your fortune from you for $1. When you are ready to have it again, you can buy it back at the same price." I thought that was a mighty fair deal. I shook the judge's hand and, with relief washing over me, headed back to Widow Douglas's house for dinner. Miss Watson and Widow Douglas' house was surrounded by farmland. They owned slaves who worked on the land and in the house. One of the slaves was a tall man called Jim, who always said hello to me. Jim also used to say he could see things regular people couldn't, like the future. Part of me didn't believe him, but part of me also wanted it to be true, so I could find out what was going to happen with my pap. Instead of heading to the front porch when I got home from town, I made my way to the small, ramshackle cluster of huts where the slaves lived. I found Jim washing himself in a water trough. "Jim, I need you to look into my future," I said. Jim looked hot and tired, but he smiled and beckoned me to follow him. "What do you want to be looking into your future for?" asked Jim, sitting on a wooden chair outside his hut. "I need to know if my pap is going to come and see me, and what he's going to do." Jim closed his eyes and breathed in the warm air. After a while, I wondered if he might have fallen asleep, but then his eyes opened wide and he began to speak. "Your pap has 2 angels on his shoulders. One is good. It tells him the right ways to behave. The other angel is bad. It's the angel that your pap listens to when he gets into trouble. I can't tell which one of these angels is going to win this time, but what I do know is that you'll be all right, Huck." That was good enough for me, for now. I smiled and ran back to the house. I could smell meat and potatoes rising up from the kitchen downstairs, so I washed my hands and straightened my hair the way I knew Widow Douglas liked. The 3 of us ate dinner together, and I made up all kinds of excuses as to why my clothes were dirty. I couldn't tell them I'd been playing by the river. Miss Watson wouldn't approve. The worry of seeing Pap's boot print, followed by the relief of selling my fortune to the judge, had made me real tired. I took a candle and headed to my room to sleep. As I set my candle on the little table by my bed, the room filled with light. And there, sitting by the open window, was Pap. Chapter 3. I froze, rooted to the spot. I stared at Pap, and he stared right back at me, with a strange smile on his face. He looked worse than the last time I saw him. His hair was long and hung in black ropes around his pale face. His eyes were sunk back into his head, and some of his teeth had fallen out. "Ain't you pleased to see your old Pap?" he said at last. "Sure," I replied, even though it was probably the biggest lie I ever told. "I came to congratulate you," said Pap, standing up. "I hear you're quite the big man here in town, and awfully rich, too." I backed as far as I could into the corner of my room as Pap slowly stepped towards me. "Not anymore," I said, trying to steady my voice. I didn't want to show Pap that I was afraid of him. I sold my fortune to the judge for $1. Pap burst into a horrible cackle that filled the room. He had a wild look on his face. "Judge Thatcher is fooling you, son," he said, grinning. "That money is yours, and as your Pap, that means I'm entitled to it." Pap lunged at me, and I dodged out of the way. "I don't have it no more," I cried. But it was no good. Pap wanted that money, and I knew that he wasn't going to stop until he got it.
He's probably drunk.
"You're coming to live with me again," he said, breathing heavily. "No son of mine is going to waste his time reading, writing, praying, and wearing fancy clothes." Pap grabbed me by the arm and swung me over his shoulder as though I weighed no more than a bag of flour. There was nothing Widow Douglas could do to stop him. Even Miss Watson hit him a couple of times with her umbrella, but he was too strong for either of them. Chapter 4. Pap's shack in the woods was just one room. At one end was a black, iron stove and an old crate with a tin plate and mug on top. At the other end was a pile of sacks and hay for sleeping on. It always felt damp, no matter the time of year or how hot the sun got. The floor was made of packed mud. For the first few days I was there, Widow Douglas and Judge Thatcher came by to try and take me back to town. But Pap was ready for them. He'd gotten friendly with another judge at one of the inns, who told him he had every right to keep me, as long as he stayed in St. Petersburg. I stopped going to school. Instead, I spent my days hunting and fishing, which I didn't mind all too much. I missed spending time with Tom, but on the days when Pap wasn't around, I was mostly fine. It was the days and nights he came back moody that were the problem. Sometimes he was so angry, he wouldn't even know
Alright, we're
who
gonna
it
stop it
was.
right there.
He started to beat me again. Then there were days.
We're gonna stop it right there because I'm almost out of time. So, what do you guys think of the story so far? We're three chapters in, so I hope you guys like the story so far, and I hope you guys like this video. And what do you guys think of Tom Sawyer's situation? Will you get out of the situation? Will you find help, or will you be rescued? I think that's for you guys to decide. What will happen next? We'll find out next time on the next part of this review. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Bye, guys. Oh, there we go. Bye.